The sky had turned a soft gray, and snowflakes began to drift down slowly, covering the ground in a quiet, sparkling blanket. Emily tightened her scarf around her neck and pulled her coat closer, feeling the cold bite at her cheeks. She had been traveling with her family for several hours now, making their way through the valley to reach her grandmother's cabin. The horses plodded steadily through the snow, their breath visible in the chilly air. Emily could hear the soft crunch of the wagon wheels against the frozen ground, and the rhythmic clopping of the horses' hooves. Everything seemed peaceful, almost magical, with the snow creating a quiet world of white. Emily loved the winter, loved how it made everything look clean and bright, even though it was cold and sometimes uncomfortable. She looked around at the mountains rising around the valley, their peaks hidden in a soft mist. She could see the snow settling on the trees, each branch weighed down by the fluffy white layer. It was beautiful, but Emily knew the journey could be dangerous. Snow could hide ice, and ice could make the wagon slip. Still, she tried to stay cheerful, humming softly to herself to keep her spirits up. Her younger brother, little Tommy, sat beside her in the wagon, his face red from the cold. He tried to make a snowball from the small pile of snow that had collected in the wagon bed, but it kept melting in his small hands. "I want to go faster," he said, bouncing with excitement. Emily laughed. "Slow down, Tommy," she said. "The horses need to stay steady, and the road is slippery." Their parents were up front, guiding the horses carefully, their eyes constantly scanning the path for danger. The snow began to fall more heavily, and soon the valley seemed to disappear in a soft, white haze. Emily felt a little nervous. It was getting harder to see the path ahead, and she noticed the horses struggling a bit on the icy patches. Her father slowed the wagon down, gripping the reins tightly. Emily hugged Tommy closer, wrapping her arm around him as they moved carefully through the snow-covered trail. She tried to stay calm, but there was a small knot of fear in her stomach. Suddenly, the wagon hit a patch of ice. Emily felt the wheels slip under her feet, and for a moment, everything seemed to move in slow motion. The wagon tipped to one side. Emily screamed, and for a second, she felt herself flying through the air. Then she landed hard, trapped under the heavy wagon. The cold metal pressed against her legs and back, and the snow around her was deep and soft, but it made her feel even colder. She tried to push herself free, but the wagon was too heavy. "Mom, Dad, help me," Emily cried, her voice shaking. Snow drifted into her mouth and nose, making it hard to breathe. She could see her brother's frightened face above her, his small hands reaching out, but he couldn't lift the wagon. Her parents were trying everything, but it was impossible to move it without help. Emily's heart pounded. She had never felt so trapped in her life. She tried to remember the safety lessons her father had always told her. Stay calm, think carefully, and never panic. Emily took a deep breath, letting the cold air fill her lungs. She wiggled her fingers and toes, trying to move slowly so she wouldn't hurt herself more. The snow continued to fall, each flake landing softly on her hair and shoulders. It was quiet around her, except for the soft sound of the wind and the horses' whinnies in the distance. Emily thought about her family. Her mother's gentle voice, always encouraging. Her father's steady hands, guiding the horses. Tommy's laughter, bright and cheerful. Even on a cold day, she realized she had to stay strong, not just for herself, but for them too. The thought gave her a little courage. She began to shift carefully, trying to find a position that would allow her to free her legs. It was slow work, and the snow kept falling, making it even colder. She shivered, but she refused to give up. Minutes felt like hours. Emily's arms ached, and her legs were numb from the weight of the wagon. The cold had begun to sink into her bones, making her teeth chatter uncontrollably. She knew she had to stay awake. Closing her eyes for even a second could be dangerous. She focused on her breathing, counting slowly in her head. 1, 2, 3. She imagined a warm fire, her mother's soup, and the soft blankets at her grandmother's house. It kept her mind from giving in to panic. Above her, her brother continued to cry softly, trying to call her name. Emily whispered back, "I'm okay, Tommy. I'm okay." She didn't want him to be more afraid than he already was. She felt the snow pressing around her body, cold and heavy, but she refused to let it scare her. She remembered stories of people who had survived dangerous situations, people who had found strength when it seemed impossible. Emily decided she could be one of those people. Suddenly, she heard a distant sound through the snowstorm. At first, she thought it was her imagination, but then it grew louder. A rhythmic thumping, steady and strong. Hooves. Someone was approaching. Emily's heart jumped. Could it be help? She tried to shout, but her voice was weak from fear and cold. "Help!" she cried, hoping the sound would be close enough to reach whoever was coming. The hooves drew closer, and soon a figure emerged from the snow. A man, tall and strong, riding a horse with confidence and skill. Emily could see the determined look on his face, the way he guided the horse carefully through the snow. He noticed the overturned wagon immediately and didn't hesitate. The man dismounted, his boots crunching on the icy snow. Emily could see the kindness in his eyes even before he spoke. "Hold on, young lady," he said, his voice calm and steady. "I'll get you out of there." Emily's heart leapt with hope. She tried to nod, her lips trembling. The man moved quickly but carefully, assessing how to lift the wagon without hurting her further. Emily felt a warmth spread through her chest, a mixture of relief and gratitude. She wasn't alone anymore. Even though she was still trapped, Emily felt a small sense of safety for the first time since the accident. She knew someone strong and brave was there, someone who would not leave her behind. The snow continued to fall, but for the first time, it didn't feel as scary. She focused on the sound of the man's voice, the rhythm of the hooves, and the promise that she might soon be free. Emily's mind wandered for a moment to the life she wanted to live, the dreams she had, the adventures she wanted to take. She promised herself silently that she would remember this moment not as one of fear, but as the moment she realized that courage, hope, and kindness could come from the most unexpected places. And so, trapped under the cold wagon in the middle of a snowy valley, Emily waited, shivering but not defeated, her eyes fixed on the approaching figure, who might be her only chance of escape. She took another deep breath, whispering to herself, "I can do this. I have to do this." The wind continued to swirl, the snow continued to fall, but Emily's determination grew with every passing second. She would not give up. Not yet. Not when help was so close. Emily could feel the snow pressing against her face and the icy ground biting through her coat. Her hands were numb, and the heavy wagon still pressed down on her legs, making every movement painful. She tried to wiggle, shifting just enough to relieve some of the pressure. Her breath came in short, quick gasps, each one leaving her colder than the last. She could hear the wind whistling softly through the trees, and each sound made her heart pound harder. She was trapped, but she refused to give in to fear. The distant sound of hooves grew louder. Emily could barely make out the figure of a man on horseback emerging through the snowstorm. Her heart leapt, a spark of hope igniting inside her. Maybe, just maybe, help had come. She tried to shout, but her voice was small and weak, almost swallowed by the heavy snow falling around her. "Please, help," she called, her words trembling. She hoped the man would hear her, that he would see her trapped under the wagon before it was too late. The man guided his horse closer, moving carefully so that the animal did not slip on the ice. Emily could see his coat dusted with snow, his face serious but calm. There was something about the way he approached that gave her a strange comfort. He seemed experienced, someone who knew how to handle difficult situations, someone who would not leave her behind. The sight made her chest feel a little lighter, and for the first time since the accident, she allowed herself a small breath of relief. The man dismounted swiftly but carefully. His boots made soft crunching sounds in the snow as he walked toward the wagon. He knelt down and looked at Emily, his eyes meeting hers. "Don't worry," he said softly. "I'm here. You're going to be fine. Just stay still. Okay?" Emily nodded weakly, tears mixing with the falling snow on her cheeks. His voice was calm, steady, and full of reassurance. It made her feel as if the storm around them had quieted just a little. Emily tried to move her legs again, but the wagon's weight pressed down too firmly. Panic threatened to creep in, but she took a deep breath and focused on the man in front of her. "Can you lift it?" she asked, her voice trembling. The man shook his head slightly but smiled gently. "Not alone," he admitted. "But I'll figure it out. You just hold on, okay?" Emily nodded again, gripping the cold snow with her hands to keep herself steady. He looked around quickly and then went to the side of the wagon. Emily could see his muscles tense as he positioned himself to lift. The snow made it slippery, but he held firm, planting his feet carefully. Emily felt a strange mix of fear and hope. She had never seen someone so strong and determined. She watched as he bent down, grasped the edges of the wagon, and lifted as carefully as he could. The wagon shifted slightly, enough for Emily to wiggle her body. She tried to move her legs, inching herself free with each careful motion. Minutes passed slowly, every second stretching longer than the last. The snow continued to fall, covering everything in white, making the world seem quiet and still. Emily's heart raced, but she focused on the man's voice and the sound of his movements. "Almost there. Just a little more," he said. Emily felt a spark of hope. She knew she might make it out alive, that someone had come to help her when it seemed impossible. Her arms ached from holding herself steady, her fingers stiff from the cold. She tried to push herself further, but the wagon was heavy, and the snow under it made it harder to slide free. The man noticed and adjusted his position, lifting a little more. Emily could see his face, dusted with snow, eyes focused and kind. He was not giving up, and that gave her courage. She focused on moving slowly, inch by inch, following his instructions. "Okay. Now scoot to the side," he instructed gently. Emily shifted her body as best she could, feeling the wagon rise just enough. She took a deep breath and pushed herself sideways. The snow beneath her gave way slightly, and she felt herself move a little more freely. The cold burned her skin, but she kept going, knowing that if she stopped, she might lose the chance to get out. The man adjusted again, lifting the wagon slightly higher. Emily could feel the weight lessen, even if only a little. Her heart raced with relief. She whispered, I think I can get out now." The man nodded encouragingly. "Yes, you can. Just a little more. You're doing great." Emily's confidence grew. She wiggled and pushed carefully. And finally, with one last effort, she slid out from under the wagon. She landed in the snow, shivering but free. The cold hit her all at once, and she gasped, wrapping her arms around herself. The man immediately knelt beside her, covering her with his coat to keep her warm. "You're safe now," he said gently. "I've got you." Emily could feel tears running down her face. Not from fear now, but from relief. She nodded, overwhelmed with gratitude. For the first time since the accident, she allowed herself to relax, letting the warmth of the man's coat shield her from the bitter snow. Her brother ran to her side, hugging her tightly, his small body shaking. "Emily, are you okay?" he asked, his voice full of worry. Emily hugged him back, smiling weakly. "I'm okay, Tommy. I'm okay," she whispered. Their parents hurried over, checking her carefully, their faces full of relief. "Thank goodness," her mother said, tears in her eyes. "We were so worried." "Thanks for watching." "We were so worried." The man stood up slowly, brushing the snow off his coat. "Everyone's fine," he said, nodding toward the family. "The wagon is heavy, but no one is hurt badly. That's what matters." Emily's father stepped forward, gratitude shining in his eyes. "Thank you," he said simply, his voice filled with sincerity. "We don't know what we would have done without you." The man smiled humbly, shaking his head. "It's nothing," he said softly. "Anyone would have done the same." Emily still shivered, the cold seeping into her bones. The man helped her up, steadying her as she took careful steps in the snow. Her legs ached, but she felt safe now. The wagon was righted, and the horses were unharmed, though a little spooked. Emily watched the man as he checked the harnesses and reins, making sure everything was secure before he allowed the family to continue. As the family prepared to move on, Emily looked at the man. "What's your name?" she asked, her curiosity overcoming her shyness. He smiled gently. "Jake," he said, "just a passerby, helping where I can." Emily nodded, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. She knew she would never forget this moment. The kindness of a stranger in the middle of a snowy valley. The snow continued to fall softly around them, but it no longer seemed threatening. Emily felt a small warmth inside her. Not from the coat, but from hope and courage. She realized that sometimes help came from the most unexpected places, and bravery wasn't always loud or flashy. It could be quiet, strong, and kind, just like Jake. Emily hugged her brother and parents once more, feeling the safety and love around her. She took a deep breath, letting the cold air fill her lungs, and whispered to herself, "I'm safe. I'm really safe." The snow continued to fall, covering the valley in white, but Emily no longer felt trapped. She had faced the fear, and with the help of a brave stranger, she had come out stronger on the other side. As the family climbed back into the wagon and guided the horses carefully through the snowy path, Emily glanced at Jake one last time. He tipped his hat and smiled, then mounted his horse and rode off into the white landscape, disappearing into the snowstorm. Emily watched him go, feeling a mix of awe and gratitude. She knew that she had been saved, not just by strength, but by courage and kindness. For the first time since the accident, Emily felt hope rising inside her. She held her brother's hand, feeling the warmth of family and the kindness of a stranger, knowing that this was a story she would remember forever. Emily still shivered as she wrapped herself tightly in the warm coat that Jake had given her. The snow was falling steadily, covering everything in a soft, white blanket. She could see the wagon upright again, the horses standing calmly beside it, their breaths forming clouds in the cold air. Her family gathered around, checking that everyone was all right. Her father gently rubbed Emily's arms to warm them, and her mother held Tommy close, whispering comforting words. Even though Emily was safe, she could still feel the icy chill running through her body. Jake knelt beside her again, making sure she was steady on her feet. "You did really well," he said, his voice calm and reassuring. "It was important that you stayed calm under there." Emily looked at him, her eyes wide with admiration and gratitude. I tried," she said softly. "It was so scary, but I kept thinking about my family." Jake nodded. "That's the right way to think. Keeping your mind clear is just as important as being strong." His words made her feel stronger already, as if the fear had started to melt away. Her parents approached Jake, their faces full of gratitude. "We can't thank you enough," her father said, shaking his hand firmly. "You saved her life." Jake smiled humbly, brushing snow off his coat. "I just helped where I could," he said softly. "The important thing is that everyone is okay." Emily could see that he was modest about his actions, but to her, he seemed like a hero. She had never met someone so calm, so brave, and so kind, all at the same time. Once Emily felt steady enough to walk, Jake helped her step over the snow and get closer to the wagon. Her legs were stiff and sore from being trapped, but she could feel a little strength returning with each careful movement. She glanced around the snow-covered valley, taking in the quiet beauty of the winter scene. The snow was falling gently, muffling all sound, and the mountains in the distance looked peaceful and calm. It was almost magical, and Emily realized that this same snowstorm that had caused so much fear was now part of the moment that saved her. Jake took a few steps back, giving the family space to organize themselves. "Let's make sure the wagon is ready to move again," he said. Emily watched as he checked the harnesses on the horses, making sure they were secure and comfortable. He adjusted the reins, testing each movement carefully. Even though he could have left after helping Emily out, he stayed to ensure that the family would be safe on their journey. Emily felt grateful, not just for saving her, but for the care he showed toward everyone. Her brother Tommy ran up to her side, his face bright despite the cold. "Are you really okay now?" he asked, his voice full of worry and curiosity. Emily smiled and nodded. "Yes, Tommy, I'm okay, thanks to him." She gestured toward Jake. Tommy's eyes widened, and he took a small step toward Jake. "You're like a real cowboy hero," he said, his small voice full of admiration. Jake chuckled softly. "Just doing what anyone should do," he replied, his tone gentle. Emily laughed quietly. She could feel the tension from earlier melting away, replaced by warmth and gratitude. The family prepared to get back into the wagon, guiding the horses carefully through the snow-covered trail. Emily climbed in slowly, her parents helping her. She could still feel her legs were weak, but the warmth of her coat and the presence of her family made her feel safe. Jake stood nearby, watching to make sure everything was secure. The snow fell softly around them, but the fear from before had faded. Emily realized that sometimes moments of danger could lead to moments of courage and kindness that one would never forget. As they began to move forward again, Emily's father turned toward Jake. "We owe you so much," he said sincerely. "If it weren't for you, I don't want to think about what could have happened." Jake smiled quietly, shaking his head. "It's nothing. You stayed calm, and that helped a lot. Just make sure to keep everyone safe, and that's enough." Emily watched him, feeling a mix of respect and admiration. She wanted to remember this feeling forever, the warmth of gratitude and the quiet strength of someone willing to help a stranger. The ride through the snow was slow, but steady. Emily held Tommy's hand, feeling the small comfort of his warmth. She thought about the moments she had been trapped under the wagon, the fear, the cold, the struggle, and then compared them to the relief she felt now. It was almost unbelievable how quickly things had changed. One moment she had been scared and alone under a heavy wagon, and now she was safe, surrounded by family, and protected by a stranger's kindness. Emily glanced out at the valley, watching the snow fall around the trees and mountains. It looked peaceful, almost untouched by the chaos of moments before. She realized that nature could be both beautiful and dangerous at the same time. She also understood that courage came in many forms, not just in grand actions, but in small, steady decisions made when someone's life was at risk. Jake's calm and careful actions had reminded her of that truth. After a while, Emily felt a little warmer. Her parents had wrapped extra blankets around her, and Tommy was happily nibbling on a small piece of bread his mother had given him. Emily's attention returned to Jake. He had stepped a little aside, making sure the horses were walking safely and that the path ahead was clear. Emily felt a strong urge to thank him properly. "Jake," she said softly, "I don't know how to tell you how grateful I am. You saved me." Jake looked at her and smiled gently. "Just remember to be brave when you need to be," he said. "That's the best way to honor what happened." Emily nodded, feeling a sense of understanding and connection. She realized that being brave didn't always mean doing something heroic alone. It meant staying calm, helping yourself and others, and letting kindness guide you in moments of danger. Jake's words stayed with her, echoing in her mind as the snow continued to fall softly around them. The family continued their journey, moving slowly but steadily through the snow. Emily could feel the warmth returning to her legs and arms, and her heart was filled with relief. She glanced at Jake one last time as they approached a small curve in the trail. He tipped his hat politely, his eyes warm and kind, then mounted his horse and rode off into the snowy distance. Emily watched him disappear, feeling a mixture of awe and gratitude. She knew she would never forget the moment he had lifted the wagon and given her hope when it felt like there was none. For the rest of the journey, Emily felt a deep sense of reflection. She thought about the fear she had felt under the wagon and how quickly it had changed to relief and gratitude. She thought about the bravery it took to stay calm, the strength it took to help others, and the kindness it took to step into a dangerous situation for someone you don't even know. She realized that life was fragile, but moments of courage and kindness could make even the coldest, scariest moments feel warm and hopeful. As the family neared the small cabin in the valley, Emily felt a strong sense of accomplishment and relief. They would be safe soon, warm and fed, with the memory of the snowy accident behind them. But she also knew she would carry the lesson of courage, hope, and kindness with her for the rest of her life. She had been trapped and scared, but she had survived, and she had seen firsthand how one person's actions could make all the difference. Emily looked at her parents and brother, feeling the love and warmth that had supported her even before the accident. She realized that life was unpredictable, sometimes frightening, but also filled with moments of unexpected help and human goodness. She held Tommy's hand, smiled at her parents, and whispered softly to herself, "I will never forget today. I will never forget him." The snow fell gently around the cabin as they arrived, covering the valley in a quiet, peaceful layer of white. Emily stepped down from the wagon, feeling the soft crunch of snow under her boots. She looked up at the sky, thinking of Jake and the courage he had shown. She felt a deep gratitude and a sense of hope that would stay with her forever. She knew that even in the coldest and most frightening moments, kindness and courage could appear, and that sometimes, strangers could become heroes in ways she would never forget. By the time Emily and her family reached the small cabin at the edge of the valley, the snow had started to lighten, falling in soft, slow flakes that dusted the roof and trees. The cabin, small and welcoming, seemed like a warm haven in the midst of the cold, white world. Emily could feel her body relaxing as she stepped down from the wagon, the warmth of the cabin calling to her. Her legs were still sore from being trapped under the wagon, and her arms ached from the cold. But the fear that had gripped her earlier was slowly fading, replaced by relief and a growing sense of gratitude. Her mother led the way inside, and Emily followed, pulling Tommy along gently. The inside of the cabin was cozy, with a small fire crackling in the fireplace. The warmth spread quickly through Emily's chilled body, and she felt the tension leave her shoulders. Her father laid down the blankets they had brought along, while her mother helped Emily and Tommy sit near the fire. Emily could see her brother shivering slightly, so she wrapped an arm around him, sharing the warmth she felt. Sitting near the fire, Emily reflected on what had just happened. The events of the snowy valley seemed almost unreal now that she was safe. She remembered the fear, the snow pressing against her face, the heavy weight of the wagon, and the hopelessness she had felt. But she also remembered the moment Jake had arrived, his calm presence, and the way he had lifted the wagon to save her. She realized that bravery and kindness could appear in the most unexpected forms, and that sometimes strangers could become heroes in a single, quiet moment. Emily's father checked over everyone carefully. "Are you hurt anywhere else?" he asked gently, looking at her with concern. Emily shook her head, wincing slightly as her sore muscles protested. "Just my legs and arms," she admitted. "I think I'll be fine with rest." Her mother nodded, offering a reassuring smile. "We'll take care of you. Just focus on warming up and resting now." Emily felt a wave of comfort wash over her. Being surrounded by family, safe and warm, made the earlier fear seem distant, though it would never completely leave her mind. As the family settled, Emily could not stop thinking about Jake. He had helped her without asking for anything in return. He had risked the snow and cold to save her life, and he had done it quietly, without seeking praise or recognition. Emily realized that true courage was not about being noticed, but about taking action when it mattered most. She felt a deep respect for him, mixed with gratitude that someone so kind had crossed her path at the right moment. Tommy, noticing Emily's thoughtful expression, asked, "Do you think we'll ever see him again?" Emily smiled faintly, shaking her head. "I don't know," she said, "but I'll never forget him. He showed us what being brave and kind really means." Her mother joined in, brushing a stray snowflake from Emily's hair. "Sometimes, people come into our lives for a reason, even if just for a moment," she said softly. "What matters is that you remember the lesson and carry it with you." Emily nodded, taking in her mother's words. She knew they were right. The family spent the next hour warming up, drinking hot tea and nibbling on bread they had brought with them. Emily could feel her body slowly regaining strength, and the warmth of the fire seemed to reach deep into her bones. She watched her father carefully arrange the blankets on the cabin floor, making sure Tommy was comfortable and that she had a soft place to rest. Even in the aftermath of a frightening event, Emily realized that life's small comforts, warmth, family, safety, were what mattered most. Emily's thoughts kept returning to the snowy valley and the moment of danger when she had been trapped. She realized that the fear she had felt was natural, but it had been her calm thinking and Jake's timely help that had saved her. She understood now that fear could be overcome with patience, courage, and trust. She also realized that kindness could arrive when it was needed most, and that a single person could make a profound difference in someone else's life. As evening approached, Emily's father went outside to check on the horses and the wagon, making sure everything was secure for the night. The snow had begun to settle more heavily, covering the valley in a soft, quiet layer. Emily watched him through the window, feeling grateful for his careful planning and steady presence. She realized that safety often depended on both preparation and courage, and that the combination of both had kept her and her family alive. Emily's mother began to prepare a small meal, the smell of warm bread and broth filling the cabin. Emily and Tommy sat together near the fire, feeling the soothing warmth. Emily leaned back, thinking about the day's events and the lessons she had learned. She had experienced fear, pain, and helplessness, but she had also experienced bravery, kindness, and hope. She realized that these moments, though frightening, could teach valuable lessons that would stay with her forever. After the meal, the family gathered near the fire, wrapped in blankets. Emily felt her eyelids growing heavy, the warmth and exhaustion settling in. Her father smiled at her, and she returned the smile, feeling the bond of family and safety. "You were very brave today," he said quietly. "I'm proud of you." Emily felt a swell of pride and relief. She had faced something terrifying and come through it with courage and patience. And she had learned lessons she would never forget. As Emily drifted toward sleep, she thought about Jake one last time. She imagined him riding through the snowy valley, helping people wherever he could. She imagined the calm and kindness in his eyes, the strength in his hands, and the quiet confidence he had shown. Emily felt a deep sense of gratitude, realizing that the world was full of people who could make a difference, even in small, quiet ways. Before sleep took her completely, Emily whispered softly, "Thank you, Jake. I'll never forget you." She knew that even if she never saw him again, the courage and kindness he had shown would stay with her forever. It had changed the way she saw the world, teaching her that even in moments of fear and uncertainty, hope and bravery could appear when least expected. The cabin was quiet as the snow continued to fall outside. Emily felt safe, warm, and cared for, surrounded by her family and protected from the cold. She thought about the journey ahead, the many adventures and challenges she might face in life, and she knew that she had learned a lesson that would guide her in the future. She had learned to stay calm in difficult moments, to trust in others, and to recognize the courage that could appear in the most unexpected forms. As she finally closed her eyes, Emily felt a mixture of relief, gratitude, and hope. The fear of the snowy valley was behind her, but the lessons she had learned would stay with her forever. She had been trapped, she had been afraid, but she had survived, and she had seen the power of kindness and bravery firsthand. The snow continued to fall softly outside, covering the world in a blanket of white. But Emily's heart was warm, full of gratitude, courage, and hope for the days to come. The morning sun broke through the clouds, casting a soft golden light across the snow-covered valley. Emily woke to the gentle sound of the fire crackling and the quiet murmurs of her family preparing for the day. She stretched carefully, feeling the lingering soreness in her legs and arms, but the warmth of the cabin and the presence of her family made her feel safe and strong. Today felt different, somehow calm, peaceful, and filled with a quiet promise of hope. Emily rose and went to the window, looking out at the sparkling snow. The valley, once a place of fear and danger, now seemed like a world of possibility. The trees were covered in fresh snow, and the sunlight made the ice crystals glitter like tiny stars. Emily felt a small smile spread across her face. She realized that life could be unpredictable, sometimes frightening, but also beautiful in ways she hadn't noticed before. The snowstorm that had caused so much fear now seemed like a memory of survival, courage, and kindness. Her parents were bustling around the cabin, packing their things carefully and checking on the horses. Emily and Tommy helped where they could, making sure the blankets were folded and the supplies were ready for the journey ahead. Emily's father gave her a small nod of encouragement. "You're doing well," he said, his eyes full of pride. Emily smiled back, feeling a sense of accomplishment. She had survived a frightening event, and now she was helping her family move forward safely. Emily's thoughts kept returning to Jake. She wondered if he had made it home safely, if he had helped anyone else that day, or if he had simply continued on his way through the snow-covered valley. She felt a deep sense of gratitude for the quiet bravery he had shown, the strength and care he had used to save her. She realized that not all heroes sought recognition, some simply acted when needed, and their actions could leave a lasting impact on the lives they touched. As the family prepared to leave the cabin, Emily's mother handed her a warm scarf. "Wrap this around you," she said kindly. "The snow is still cold, and we'll be traveling for a while." Emily nodded, pulling the scarf around her neck and tucking it in tightly. She felt the warmth and love of her family surrounding her, and it reminded her of the importance of care, both giving and receiving it. Today, she understood that survival was not just about strength, but also about kindness, support, and courage, both from oneself and from others. The horses were ready, and the wagon was packed once again. Emily climbed in carefully, helping Tommy into place beside her. Her parents took their seats at the front, guiding the horses along the trail that led out of the valley. Emily held the reins for a moment, learning from her father's gentle instructions, and felt a quiet sense of connection to the journey ahead. She realized that life would continue, filled with challenges, but she now had a new understanding of resilience, hope, and human kindness. As they moved along the snow-covered path, Emily thought about how much she had changed in just a short time. The experience of being trapped under the wagon had been frightening and painful, but it had also taught her important lessons about herself and the world around her. She had learned to remain calm in the face of fear, to think clearly even when panic tried to take over, and to trust that help could arrive when it was needed most. Emily glanced at Tommy, who was laughing quietly as he watched a small bird hopping across the snow. She felt a sense of protection and responsibility for him, realizing that part of the lesson she had learned was to care for others as much as herself. The memory of Jake's calm, steady presence inspired her to think about how she could show kindness and courage in her own life, even in small ways. She promised herself that she would remember his actions and let them guide her decisions in the future. The family stopped briefly to rest the horses and stretch their legs. Emily stepped out of the wagon and took a deep breath, letting the cold, crisp air fill her lungs. She looked around the valley, feeling a mixture of awe and gratitude. The same valley that had once seemed so frightening now appeared peaceful and welcoming. She realized that danger and beauty often existed side by side, and that one could not fully appreciate life without experiencing both. While the horses rested, Emily's father spoke gently. "Today was a reminder of how important it is to stay calm and careful," he said, "and also how important it is to accept help when it's offered." Emily nodded thoughtfully. She had learned that lesson the hard way, but it was now etched into her memory forever. Her mother smiled at her. "And sometimes, the smallest act of kindness can change someone's life," she added. Emily thought of Jake's quiet bravery, lifting the wagon and speaking words of reassurance, and felt her heart swell with gratitude. Once the wagon was ready, the family continued along the trail. Emily felt a newfound sense of confidence. The fear that had gripped her earlier was replaced by a calm determination. She realized that life would have moments of difficulty, but she now knew that courage, hope, and kindness could appear even in the coldest, most challenging times. She understood that her experience under the wagon was not just a story of survival, it was a lesson about the power of human connection and the importance of remaining calm and brave when faced with fear. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, the family neared the edge of the valley. Emily could see the familiar landmarks that led to her grandmother's cabin, and a wave of relief washed over her. She knew that they would soon be safe, warm, and comfortable. But she also knew that the lessons of the snowy valley would stay with her forever. The memory of fear, the feeling of being trapped, and the arrival of Jake's help would remain a part of her life, guiding her in moments of uncertainty. Emily reflected on the courage she had seen, not just in Jake, but in herself and her family. Her parents had acted with careful planning and love, guiding the horses and keeping the wagon steady. Tommy had stayed close to her, his small presence a reminder of the importance of protecting those we care about, and she herself had found the strength to remain calm and focused, even when the snow and cold seemed overwhelming. She realized that bravery was not just about heroic actions, it was also about patience, care, and the ability to stay composed under pressure. As they finally reached the edge of the valley and saw the warm lights of her grandmother's cabin in the distance, Emily felt a deep sense of peace. She knew that she would never forget this journey, the snowstorm, or the stranger who had helped her. Jake's actions had shown her the true meaning of courage and kindness, and she promised herself that she would carry that lesson with her always. The family arrived at the cabin, and Emily stepped down from the wagon carefully, her legs still a little stiff but her heart full. Her grandmother rushed out to greet them, embracing Emily and Tommy warmly. The cabin smelled of warm food and wood smoke, and Emily felt the tension of the past hours melt away completely. She realized that life's challenges could be frightening, but they could also teach valuable lessons and reveal the strength and kindness in people around us. That evening, as the family sat by the fire, Emily thought about Jake and the events of the snowy valley. She knew that she might never see him again, but she also knew that the memory of his calm, strong, and kind presence would stay with her forever. She understood that the world was full of people capable of courage and goodness, sometimes appearing when we least expect it, and that these moments could change lives forever. Emily whispered softly to herself as she drifted off to sleep that night. "Thank you, Jake. I will never forget what you did, and I will try to be brave and kind too." She felt a sense of hope and determination, knowing that even in the face of fear and uncertainty, courage and kindness could guide her through. The snowstorm was behind her, and the warmth of family, safety, and gratitude filled her heart completely. The story of that snowy valley, the overturned wagon, and the quiet heroism of a stranger would remain with Emily always. It was a story of survival, courage, and the profound impact of kindness. Emily had learned that life could be unpredictable and sometimes frightening, but with hope, bravery, and compassion, one could overcome even the most difficult challenges. She closed her eyes, feeling safe, loved, and inspired, ready to carry the lessons of that day into every part of her life.